Welcome to Level Up TV at levelupyourgame.net. I'm Disrepute, and joining me is TDM Superstar Expert World Champion Vor. Hello, Vor.
World champion, just like Fatality, baby.
This is the second in our series of basically map rundowns, or in-depth analysis, or whatever you want to call it, of tactical play on these different TDM maps in Quake Live. So, yeah, there's a lot of depth to it and detail.
Take a while.
Might I say that nobody could compare to the detail we're going to add to these videos. We can just go on for hours and hours, and I don't even think anybody's even thought in these ways about these maps before, Vor.
No, certainly not.
Certainly not some of the best players.
Prepare for an education.
Yep. So, you ready to learn how to play a map? Well, first step, sign up to our Twitter. Follow us on Twitter /leveluptv. Then like us on Facebook /leveluptv, and then subscribe to us on YouTube /leveluptv. Are you getting that yet? Everybody.
I'm getting it. I've got it.
Yeah, Vor's done it.
What's
Everybody's
next?
done it. Next is you listen to exactly what we're going to cover now, which is our favourite map, Hidden Fortress, and we're calling this one Hidden Fortress Discovered. This is sort of a play on how it's a hidden. Anyway, don't worry about that. Let's get on with it. So, first of all, let's just have a quick overview of the map for starting off in this main area, this atrium, the bridge, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, this is the bridge, I guess you'd call it. There's a plasma gun, you see. Down here, that's a key 50 health. Quite important. There's a lot of fighting in this area. That'll be a lifesaver in many occasions. Rail there. Red there.
So close to each other.
Yeah, so important to time both of those exactly. Shotgun here at quad. Upper shotgun can be a useful source for weapon pickups. You know, it's not always a chance it's up. Safe pickup. Anyway, back room. Call it the back room, I guess. It's as good a name as any. Yellow armor, rocket launcher, another 50 health.
225s in this area, and the 3-5 bubbles as well.
Grenade launcher in a useful position. Imagine yourself here. The enemy's in this following room. Boom. Grenades everywhere.
Killed them all.
All dead. Yellow armor. Lightning gun. 5 shards. Such an important room. There's no spawns in here. It's so defendable. No, you're going to want to hold it for your team. Mega health. Shotgun. Ammo. Really important. To go with this shotgun right here. Also, I can't remember if I did or not, but rocket launcher there.
Yes,
Not sure if I
you
said
did,
it.
yeah.
Alright, whatever. Anyway, that's the basic overview of the map layout.
Little rundown of the areas of the map. So it's sort of split into, I call it 2 halves, because I don't sort of consider the yellow LG room a half, but maybe you could say thirds. But this back yellow, the red side of the map, the 2 major sides, and then the yellow lightning gun room, of obviously this corridor up to quad, is the other key area of the map. So, Vor, let's start off
Shall we go first,
with this main room, seeing as we're here. Very important area, obviously. We got, I think, 4 or 5 spawns within close proximity of this area. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is always a hive of activity, obviously, because railgun, red armor. These are so important to time. I mean, when is there ever not an important time to get rail and red? Rail on this map as well is such a dominant weapon. There's no other source of rail ammo other than the initial pickup and any that happen to drop on the ground. If you're dropping rails on this map, well, you could pay the ultimate price.
That is an important
well.
point to note as well, is it does affect the playstyle of this map. Normally on a map you get a rail, you might be a bit more defensive with it, sit back and try and survive with it, knowing that you can take all your shots, then go and replenish the ammo with a couple of ammo crates here and there around the map. No ammunition for the railgun means you have to return to this position, unless you kill someone with a rail or a teammate drops it, but in theory you have to always return to this fresh spawner of the weapon to replenish the ammo. So very important to understand that in the terms of the map, the way the map plays. There's a lot more focus on getting every single rail than there is on any other map.
Yeah, and as I said, rail is so dominant on this map. There's so many opportunities for rail shots that can't really be countered. I mean, you're going to hit rails, and your opponent is just not going to be in any position to kind of return any amount of damage on you, not even like a machine gun bullet in many cases. So it's such an important weapon for this map.
So within such close proximity to one another, you've got the railgun and the red armor. As I said, there's 5 spawns sort of right in this room. There's one down to the left by the red armor as well. So you've got 6 potential spawners all in and around this area, which means, and bearing in mind the design of the location as well, it's not really an area you hold for.
No, it's not. I mean, if you can imagine, you're stood here and you don't know the time of red, well, you're so vulnerable because there's going to be people potentially here where I'm looking now, spamming shots down onto you, in particular with their lightning guns or plasmas or rockets or nades. People just shooting from the bridge down onto you with the same sort of guns, other than lightning guns not going to reach from up there. You got to worry about people spawning here, coming straight over to red. You got to worry about, if you're stood here, someone spawning right in this corner. Again, you just waiting around here for the red and not knowing the time. You're kind of in a terrible position.
Yeah, it's definitely a position that teams will be checking at all times. So,
and obviously, if you're stood here on the rail, you're in a similarly vulnerable position, except there's a less amount of places you can be shot from. You can be hit, obviously, from the bridge up there. People can spam you from anywhere in the water, but you've also, I guess, got the luxury of being able to back off through the telly.
Yeah, it's a little bit better, but obviously you've got to wait longer, 5 seconds longer than
and
you
also
would.
You actually have to peek over. You know, you see how close I actually have to get to see the red. It's about here if you've got simple items, a bit further back if you've got regular items.
Yeah. So you make yourself more vulnerable to check out where the red armor time is. So effectively, the most important thing is not necessarily the positioning to hold this area here from the lower area anyway, but it's important to know the times on the items and keep returning for them, at least challenging for them if you're not going to grab them, dealing out damage. But
yeah,
this area, I feel, is the key to this map. The way you play it, the effectiveness of the players you have on this area, how many rails you can hold at a time, how many you can deny from your opponents, and how many red armors you can nullify or steal away if you're controlling the yellow lightning gun room. That's going to be the key difference between you and the team you're facing. So, I mean, there's not that much more to this area in a sense, because you've got all the spawns around. There's constant cess and aggression. This is a bit of a through a walkway as well to the other areas, so there's a lot of traffic going through here. You can't just stand around and control this area very easily without being pressured.
Yeah, if you're thinking about positions to stand in to wait for the red that, you know, you don't have maybe an exact time on it, you know kind of when it is, then depending on the weapons you have, this position can work, because you can, say you've got a railgun from before, you can see that yellow. There's a couple of different spawn points in the yellow room, so you know you might get some free rail shots into that room, back off towards the red if needed, and switch out to other guns if you have them. But you know, don't really want to stand on top of the red because it limits your options, because you're not going to know if anyone's going to come around this corner, and you're vulnerable from so many locations.
Yeah, I mean, we see some of the top players playing that position for down below.
Yeah, and you see them hit rails, and then it kind of puts the opponent in that back yellow room in two minds. Do they then rush you, trying to get some damage and kill you and take your rail, or do they, hesitate and just sit in that back yellow room and think about, well, can I get to the teleporter without taking another rail and dying? Or do I go to Mega? It makes things a bit more
There's a
difficult.
couple of key shots in that position as well. I mean, you are keeping an eye on this teleporter, remember, so you can see people jumping across above the red. Easy shot.
Yeah, easy shot that you should
And
hit 100% of the time.
once they've gone through that teleporter, you have an eye on the exit up above
Yeah, so
in the
imagine
back room.
someone's jumped over, hit the rail, and then the teleporter exit is just about here. You know, you can, if you think you're amazing, just aim straight at the tele exit, but more often than not, you should just wait for an easier shot.
So that's a good position to take up. But essentially, tactically, the way you want to play it is your focus is going to be on timing the red and timing the railgun, and then maybe getting out of there into a safer position. Because although this is a decent position for periods of time, this isn't a position that's going to be a safe position to stand in. There's no real exit point from here. If they spawn in the yellow and start shooting you down, if you start to back towards the red, they might just be there as well, and then you're completely
Yeah, that's the
stuck.
thing.
This is a
Because
dead
this is
end.
such a busy area, you know, you can never, even if you think it's safe, like on the bridge or in the area below the bridge, if you're getting rushed by, say, the guy with rocket launcher comes up these stairs, you miss your rail, and then he starts to rush towards you when you're in this position, you know, it's always going to be a risk to escape past the red and up these stairs. Now, often you might have it controlled and it's safe, but you know you need to be aware that if you get chased from this position past the red, you could be in danger.
Yeah, I mean, this map, because there's only the one area that's really cut off and locks down in a sort of, well, fortress, as aforementioned before, that you can secure and have a secure area. Everywhere else is almost like just some sort of walkway around. Like, everybody's going to be passing through. The whole flow of the map is important to understand on Hidden Fortress, that it's dependent on spawners and it's dependent on the way they can get to different areas. So, for example, to get up there where Vor's looking now, there's only really two routes. You can either go through the yellow room, yellow armor, lightning gun room, up the staircase. Now, if you don't control that, you can't do that. So the only other option then is to go up and go through the teleporter. So you've got to remember that players will, to get to different areas, will have to use teleporters. For example, if Vor wants to go up high, the bridge area now, how does he do it?
There's only one way. Well, there's only two ways, but there's only one way that I can take depending on who's controlling the yellow armor and lightning gun room. If the enemy controls yellow armor and lightning gun, I only have one way to get from the low part of the map to the high part, and it has to be through a teleporter.
Yeah.
This is the only way up here. Obviously, the other way up here would have been my team controls this room. I don't have to use the telly. I can come up that staircase, and then I'm high. But now that's why control of that lightning gun yellow room is so important. It completely controls the routes around the map. If you don't control it, you only have one way to traverse from low to high, and that's via the teleporter.
That's why it's really important to understand the flow of the map in terms of where the spawn points are as well. And there's a lot of spawns you get. For example, the two spawns in the back yellow side are both low. So that means most of the time you're going to have 1-2 people constantly, because there's a lot of frags on this map, there's a lot of turnover. There's people going to be spawning in that back yellow. They're constantly going to be running through that main teleporter and onto the bridge, because they don't really want to go down to the mega. It's a waste of time, and if they don't control the area above, they're not really going to get anything out of it. They might want to come low to the red, but everybody wants the height advantage, so you've got to think about that at all times, that the teleporter control and the way the players flow around the map is probably the key to this map, into understanding where to take advantage of the situation. So we're on the bridge area now. Now this is obviously higher than we were before, but in the same room. Now you've got access to the plasma gun, the only gun in this open area. There is the shotgun just to the side, up by quad, which obviously, yeah, not that one, which obviously you could get, but there's not that much going on up here in terms of items. So what you're looking at is coming here after you've got an item. You also got to be wary. There's 3 spawns on here and the tele exit. So there's one there, one to the right, and then one behind right there. So you've got to be wary of those spawns and being spawned on. Again, it's always a risk going to any area with a lot of spawns and it's the open. And But still, with the height advantage, this is a very important area to play in when you're trying to pressure on the red, the rail, and even into the yellow room.
Yeah, it's got different functions depending on what's happening on the map at the time. Let's say your team also controls lightning gun yellow. If you can push out onto the bridge here and look to pick up spawn kills and make use of your yellow armor and LG, then that's ideal. But a lot of the time, let's say you've come around this corner, then you have to be wary of not only the tele exit as you come up this way, but anyone who might be over that side, because this position here is very popular for people to sit in and rail, because you can shoot down there, and that's one of the routes out of lightning gun yellow, and you can step round and shoot there, which is the other route out. Now, as much of an advantage as lightning gun yellow room often is, if you've got a player sat here who hits his shots, it means every time someone comes out of this route high, they're going to get hit by a rail. And then they have to make a decision: do they go aggressive on this railer, or do they continue to try and put pressure on him? And, against a good railer, you have to be slightly concerned about making that extra push, because if he's already hit one shot, you're not going to be on him immediately. Might get hit by another, and then they could just back off, and you'd have wasted your stack entirely. The same goes if your team doesn't. If you're playing against the team and they don't hold lightning gun yellow, I mean, the main route for them to look to get onto red is going to be into the water. Railers on the bridge are so dangerous. They can shoot down, either with rockets, rail, as I said. And the only other way up to here, obviously, is the telly. But you're coming on. If you're coming through the telly, you don't necessarily know how many are on the bridge. And let's say that you're being dominated. You might have multiple people on this bridge, some with LG, some with rail, and it's not an area that is easy to win back without a lot of frags lost at times.
I think the idea about this area just having to be cautious around here is solely based on the spawners and the tele exit being there. If they weren't there, you could really lock down this as a key area to hold, which is why it's a difficult balancing act, because you can't spend too long here. Even if you're covering that doorway with a rail, at some point they're going to get someone coming through the telly to try and clear you, and they'll just be on you straight away. So you've got to be cautious with your rail, and you do have to keep moving. But
be aware of what's happening. If your team is picking up a lot of frags and you're on here, even if you're stacked, don't take it for granted how much damage machine gunners can do to you. I mean, if your team, say, picks up 2 or 3 frags in a short space of time, you could find yourself in this position here. You think, alright, I can shoot down onto red, I can shoot over here to this spawn and to that spawn. But if you pick up a lot of frags in a short succession, you could all of a sudden have machine gunner there, and before you know it, that armor you've had is gone. If your team's picking up a lot of frags, just be prepared to abandon this position. You'll probably do damage whilst exiting, but don't just let yourself die to machine gunners.
One of the reasons that rail is so effective on this map, you have a lot of nice angles, but is also the way you can play this area based on the spawns and the flow of the map. So for example, if Vor is at bridge with a rail, now his main pattern of escape, if he is suddenly spawned on, is either to back off to quad, which is a safe route round high. There's even some health on that route.
If I go this way,
no spawn here.
I can be reasonably sure that I'm not going to run into anyone unless I've been slacking on being aware of what's going on. I should know if I'm likely to meet someone here, because let's say different situations. My team's holding lightning gun yellow. I can say with 99% certainty that I'm not going to run into anyone here, because if I was on the bridge, I should see them drop down for the teleport, and that's their only way behind this back room. So this is a good route to back off. Now, there can be other situations where your team doesn't hold lightning on yellow. Backing off this way, you could run into someone, so you might even think about dropping low, because while you'll probably get machine gunned in the back, if you drop low, you got the 50 health, so you could have either dropped how I did, or you can drop straight onto it. And then you've got options. You can either, go this way. If the enemy team's holding this room, then it's a risky way to go. But depending on what weapons you have, you might even pick up some frags on this corner, or you can obviously escape in the water. But as said earlier, this is another high traffic route because the teleporter is being used constantly throughout the whole game. Escaping on this map can be difficult, so you want to try and always stay ahead of the game and not get caught out and have to make a sudden escape.
So to play this area, I just talked about how you might individually cover certain points. As a team, there's a few different setups and the ways you might play it. Now, recently we've seen teams that are happy to put all 4 on the red if they don't control the yellow, because it really depends how effective the team they're playing against is with yellow. But they're quite happy to play everybody on this red and back yellow, I guess you would call it. That's really the split, isn't it? The back yellow and the red side of the map. Because if you get the right weaponry, you can do serious damage to them coming out of that room, as we pointed out before, with that lightning gun yellow. And you do have, obviously, a larger amount of armour if you're going to do it that route. There's 75 armour inside the yellow LG room. There's 100 in the red here, and then obviously the back yellow would give you an advantage on armour even further. So there's a viable way to playing that. It's a little bit more spread out and difficult, but as long as you time the items correctly and you're always pressuring anybody that moves out with that lightning gun yellow, then that's a viable way to play it. You could just literally focus all 4 on the red side of the map. Now,
yeah, I mean, if we're talking about different positions that you might take up to make it difficult for the other team who are holding lightning gun in yellow to actually do anything with it, I already said, railing from here, I mean, you should, your aim is worth anything, be able to get one rail hit as the guy comes around the corner. It's not the sort of corner that you can come around with any great degree of speed, because it's just the way the corners line up. It's not like you're going to clip this edge here and come around at high speed. It's always going to be someone walking round or taking a jump round, but
often going for the help.
Not quickly, yeah. So if you're in this position, you should be hitting these rails. Now, ideally, if you've got a teammate here, either with plasma or a rocket, then anyone coming around this corner should be in extreme trouble. They're either going to immediately back off, having lost everything, or they're going to be killed on this corner. If you can keep doing that, then it's going to worry the other team that they're not making good use of the lightning gun or the yellow armor in that back room, or in that side room. But obviously there are things to think about when trying to do that. Obviously this teleporter is always going to have people coming out of it potentially, so you need to be aware of that if you're going to try and do a setup, someone on that corner and someone railing from here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the kind of thing you would play a strategy to defend against. You just have to be aware.
Yeah, and positions like that, I mean, you're not going to be taking them up and sitting in them for 30 seconds or 45 seconds or whatever. You're just going to be in them when you happen to have the opportunity to do it. You can't really expect to sit in a position like this all game and for it to work. There's going to be opportunities and situations where it'll be the ideal thing to do, but if you sit here too long, it's just going to become so predictable that you'll have someone spamming around the corner at you, or you're going to keep getting caught out by someone from the teleporter.
Yeah, so the important things to note, if you're holding the red-yellow side of the map and you're not trying to win the yellow, I think you might plan to at some point, but the important thing to do is to stop them dead in their tracks of exploiting the advantage of yellow LG and what that offers. So they've basically only got 2 exits out that room. Realistically, the mega exit is something to not worry about too much. You can't really do too much about that, but you've got 2 areas you can pressure them inside the yellow room. And that's what Quake's often about. It's often about pressuring your opponents on the area they're trying to hold if you just sit back, then they will pressure you and put you into trouble. So it's always about the pressure you exert onto them. So obviously blocking that doorway off from the position that Vor just showed, that's one area from this main room. The second location you put pressure on them is to the right where Vor is now, which would be maybe railing at them from this position. There's a lot of good rail shots in there. You have to be careful you're not countered. Or
Yeah, this is again, you know, you can't sit here for any length of time, realistically. I mean, against good opponents, you know, if you miss even one rail, you need to back off instantly. I mean, if you, say, go for this shot here or that shot there, and if you miss that, then you should just back off instantly. You shouldn't sit there and expect to be, you know, safe, because they're going to be on you, looking to get that rail away from you. And obviously, another thing to think about, depending on the situation of the game, as I said, always people coming through the teleporter up here. So if you're railing here, you do have to be careful that someone doesn't decide to come through the teleporter and drop straight down on you.
or spawners even.
Yeah, or a spawner here.
There's always that threat behind. That's why, just like down at the red area, although it's a
basically
good
a
position
case
for some
of-
great shots, you've got to be aware of the spawners and the flow of the players around you. That you're not really in. There's no safe position as you stand here, because the map can just change just like that, just instantly, on where the players are. And so they can suddenly come in behind you, and then you're trapped. You're probably actually going to die, so you just need to switch away from your rail.
In a position like this, I would say always don't be greedy. I mean, if you're sat here and hit a shot or hit another, you know, a couple of shots, just be satisfied with that. But if you've hit 2 rail shots and taken no damage in return, then you've pretty much crippled whoever's in this
160
room.
damage.
Yeah, and you've still got your rail, you might still have some armor left over, and you can change position and do something else. I mean, once you're too static and you want to get too greedy and just hit more rails from this position, then you're just asking to be countered from either this side or, you know, someone. It just takes one missed rail from this position and you're in serious trouble. You have to, you know, be happy with hitting a few shots and then backing off.
It's almost an optical illusion there as well as how close the yellow position is. It looks further away than it is. Firstly, it's like a blind corner. Someone can just be up just round where that yellow is. You won't know it. You might shoot a rail shot. They've got an LG. They'll just dive in on top of you.
Yeah,
LG you down. You're dead.
Say someone's jumped into the room and you'll hit them at about this sort of height, right? But you were unaware of someone just stood on this curve here. Now, the moment you fire that rail, they might drop straight down and LG you to death. So you've always got to be sort of firing and then backing off and thinking about whether or not you're going for another shot, rather than just stupidly static and thinking, I'm hitting millions of rails, I'm amazing.
It's a position to be cautious in. Now, obviously, putting pressure on in that position is really effective. There is the other position, is the other end of the map. So through that same doorway,
you're looking at rail shots from this side, it's much the same thing. Now, you might rail someone who you can see has gone for the LG, but, you know, in this position, you have to worry about, is there someone around here ready to rush me? Now, whether it's with plasma or with rockets, or, you know, there's someone sat here, they see you shoot their mate going for lightning gun or yellow, and then they're straight round the corner as well onto you.
yeah, you've got to be very cautious about people countering you really fast. I wouldn't even really, I mean, often players do, but you might not even play for that second rail to try and block them off if you see them. Just back off, drop down, and escape. But this is a very good position to rail from and to pressure from. You can actually see the lightning gun and the yellow armor from this position. Yellow armor is a very tight viewpoint, but you effectively, their whole lead up to it is covered.
Aim specifically for the yellow. I mean, if you're here, you've got a nice, fairly wide angle to be able to shoot at someone going for the yellow, even though you can't see the yellow specifically. But you're going to see, you might catch them in the air jumping straight to it about this sort of height, or you'll see them walking to it, and you can hit them either on this edge if you want to be stupid, or just aim for this edge.
And as Will pointed out as we went around the map earlier, this grenade launcher is in an actual ideal position to be used in this area.
Yeah, it couldn't be any more perfectly placed for putting pressure on this room. I mean, obviously, as I said, someone can come around this corner straight to you, so you always have to be mindful of that. But you can fire in nades that are going to be on that back wall there, or you can just try and place them onto the actual LG pickup point.
And that, especially on the LG pickup point, is a good spot before you're going to rush in with team support maybe. Stops them getting that weapon. They start worrying about, oh, when can I jump on that weapon? Then suddenly your team can rush in and take them out. And presumably, one person won't have an LG at that point. You can also, before quad, spam a lot of grenades in that doorway just to block them off, delay them coming through. This is the key to playing the red side of the map, is pressuring them in that room, dealing out damage, unreturned ideally, damage, hitting a rail, backing off. You've done your job hitting one rail. Just
Yeah, I mean, you
remember
have to... If you're choosing specifically not to go for this room, I mean, I think even if you're playing a tactic where you don't look to attack this room, then you should still look for opportunities to be in the room, taking the items if the enemy's not in there, but, you know, you just want to make them worried about... It's quite difficult for us to push out because we seem to be taking a lot of damage. You want a doubt in their mind that they can comfortably push out and make use of what they've got. I mean, if you're talking about being in this position leading up to quad, it's kind of ideal because you can just put nades in. As you're backing off as well, you've got enough nades to, providing you time it right, keep anyone from coming this direction to quad.
And of course, quad only has those two routes to it, so that you can block off. And they're a long route from that yellow armor LG side, so always worth considering that aspect to it, that if you're holding the red at the time, blocking them off, delaying their route to quad is the best thing you can do. So that's
I think we should probably save looking at quad until later, but
yeah. But yeah, I was going to say that sort of covers this main room. Now, I said you could play with 4, sort of playing the red back yellow side. Obviously, you don't want all 4 standing on the red as it spawns. You need them spread out and, as we pointed out, pressuring. But you might want to play more of a split. We've seen often teams play one guy. Once they've locked down the yellow room, play one guy in the yellow room and then 3 attack the red and rail, which is a really effective tactic, especially if the other team's not very good at countering a yellow LG player.
Yeah, if there's not enough pressure on that LG player, then, you know, one good quality player, you know, solid aim and can defend himself in that room against, say, spawners coming up from Mega or, you know, positions like that, then it's kind of ideal because with 3 players and the occasional push out from the LG yellow player, you can put a lot of pressure on the team who are, you know, relying on this red armor to keep them in the game, because if you're not getting lightning gun yellow, it's pretty much essential to be getting this red armor.
As I would say, what your focus should be as those 3 as well is actually the rail gun. You should time the rail as your 3, and all you need to do is nullify that red, and you'll have that armor advantage from the yellow room. On top of that, if one guy can time the back yellow, then that would be absolutely ideal. But you got to remember that if they don't have the yellow LG, they're going to know they need to get those reds. So more often than not, they'll commit more people to it. They'll have 4 to your 3, say, to reds. They'll probably get it. But if you've done enough damage anyway, then it's nullified it completely. There's no advantage gained from that. In fact, they're at a disadvantage on armor in the metagame. So that would be your sort of your plan going forwards, playing that area, I would say. So, moving round, I don't really think there's any discussion on the back room and how to play it. There's 2. If you go to the back room, vor, there's 2 spawns down low. There's non-high. High is the route to quad. That's the way it's used. Usually, you might get railers there or people looking for that 25. That's often the route why people would go around up there. But there's 2 spawns down there. They're right on top of the yellow. That's why it's a difficult yellow to actually time and grab, because spawns are constantly happening there and people constantly just spawn on, and there's a yellow up, they grab it. So it's a yellow while you can time it and try and get an advantage on it. It's more of a risk to focus your strategy on it, because it's so open here as well that if one team wanted to make sure you got nothing out of those yellows, it could very easily work on this upper ground, just firing down as you picked it. But it's always useful to obviously grab that and understand the flow of the players. Now, the way we'll come back to the way you defend quad, etc. But we'd probably talk about the route now to mega health and how you might play that, because I don't think there's too much to mega health, to be honest. But mega health is down in this sort of water walkway below. There's only the mega health in here and a spawn. I mean, yeah, shotgun ammo, get excited about that, Vor.
Yeah, sure.
But apart from that, 2 entrances or slash exits, 1 to the yellow, 1 to either yellow room, basically. So
yeah, and if your team is not controlling yellow LG above you, then you need to think about where you stand. I mean, there's different positions. I mean, you can be hidden, stood here. If you don't know the time and you've got a rocket launcher, then this position's ideal. Now, obviously, opponents often expect ambushes, so they're not always just going to dive blindly on the mega. If they have a rocket of their own, they might spam here so that it hits you, or this side so that it hits you, just to see if you're there. But this is a fairly solid ambush point, either with a rocket launcher or a shotgun, or this position over here does the same thing.
I think the key about this area of the map is that because it's so out of position for either side is, if you're holding red, you're miles away from red. If you're holding yellow, you lose upper ground position. So you don't want to be going down it and standing around down here waiting for it. You want a time on it, and you want to turn up at the right time. Now, obviously, you need to maybe go a little bit earlier to make sure it's covered and secure, because you don't want to get ambushed. But it's a key thing to think about is that you've lost position if you're either team going to this, position and time getting this mega. And I'm not a great fan of mega health because, one, often you're getting it with save. Vor gets it now, 50 health. He's only 150. That's not.
And ticking down.
And it's ticking down straight away. It won't be long before he's just spawner health. 20 seconds or whatever, and he's spawner health already. So
yeah. So if you don't know the time of mega, whatever you do, if you're, say, playing the lightning gun yellow position, do not come down here and sit here for 10 or 12 seconds or however long wondering when the mega is. Just keep an eye on it from up in this sort of position, down or whatever, but you can hear it being taken from what I understand.
You can see the movement of players. You can obviously get an idea of when it is. But mega health, for some people, they do have an obsession with it. I don't think it's that strong an item because of the tick down, because of usually when you pick it up, you're not that high a health anyway. Secondly, it's also 35 seconds, so it spawns less regular than an armor. So why would you give up an 75 armor up here to drop down to get something that's going to tick down, and you're going to have to wait longer for it to respawn anyway? So there's something worth thinking about, and especially in TDM and this map, positioning is everything. Do not think about items over position.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing this room, let's say you're playing it on your own because you've got 3 people playing red. If you're dropping down to mega and you don't know the time, you better be 100,000% sure but nobody is going to come in from here.
Yeah, that nobody's going to get plasma spawn and go, oh, I'll just have a look in there.
Yeah, because, let's say that you're not the sort of player maybe that times every item in this room to the absolute second. Now, if you go down for mega and you've forgotten that, oh god damn it, lightning gun's coming up. You've gone down for mega, someone comes in high, they've got lightning gun, and all of a sudden you've got to come up this staircase against a lightning gun.
You're in serious trouble. You're going to die, and you're going to lose position. Your teammates are going to go mental at you.
Pro tip, by the way, if that does happen, do not try and come up here just to get lightning gun back.
Just keep your stack. You've got mega, you've probably got some armor, and you've probably got a lightning gun already, so just back off.
Maintain what you've got, and you'll get an opportunity to come in this room again.
I'll just take this point to point out, as I said, like, positions are more important than items. Obviously, that depends on weapons. Weapons are the most important item. Remember, the game's about kills and obviously deaths. You've got to get more kills than your opponents, fewer deaths, right? So, how are you going to get that? Getting an armor does not get you anything. It gives you more of a chance to survive and win a fight as a result, but it doesn't get you a frag, neither does getting a mega. So they are not the be-all and end-all. We see plenty of times when we stream, teams are outstacked over the map, but they still win. And that's because they're getting the weapons and they're using them effectively. So just remember that. In this room, you've got a lightning gun high. If you drop down to mega, you've got no weapon down there. So think about that.
And obviously we're not saying don't go for mega at all. It's just you need to think about what might happen while you're down there. I mean, if you're the only guy up here, for all you know, there could be someone waiting around here. If the other team in particular has the time on the mega, you know, they actually might wait until mega's up. They might not even hear you go down, but they'll assume if they've got the time on mega, he's gone down for mega, I can move in.
Yeah, and then they might even just ambush you because they don't need to rush in and make a big scene. They could just stand up high, and they hear you running up the stairs. You're all jolly, thinking, "Yeah, I've done a great job, got a smell for mega," and then bam, suddenly rocket to the face out of nowhere. So always worth considering. Now we were just talking about mega there. We sort of moved into the yellow room a bit, so we might as well stick with the yellow room position. But yeah, how you would play this room now. Traditionally, at least when we started playing it, we played with 2 people in this room in some way. So we played with one guy would try and stack, use the LG, move out as much as they can, while another guy always defends high firstly. Make sure this is a route that people can't just run it and just walk in and take control of the room when the LG player's out. And then they would just stack up if the other guy can't get back for yellow, LG or whatever. But you'd always have then at least one person getting the armor, getting the weapons, and we would try and use it as much as possible. Some teams play with maybe 1, maybe 2 guys. You don't want to sit too far back in. If you stick 2 guys in the yellow room, you're probably going to be outnumbered on the rest of the map, unless the other team is pretty thick and they just keep running in, giving you kills.
That's the thing. This map plays out different ways. You'll play against some teams where they invest everything in trying to get this room back. They'll do it even if it's at the cost of 10 frags, 15 frags, just trying to get back in this room. And you know, you need to be taking advantage of that. I mean, when you've got a team that overcommits to this room, you can even almost afford to commit 1 extra player of your own, or have 2 or 3 of your own team defending this room, and if that situation occurs.
When we're playing, I'm dreaming that the team will do that. I'm so happy when I see them rushing in.
Because you'll typically have one person in this position here with either a rocket or a shotgun. You know, one person sat in the room also firing towards people in this position, and you'll just pick up so many frags, it's absurd. And obviously the third person's watching the staircase from mega and from the shotgun. But you know, if a team ever overcommits to trying to win back that yellow room, it's a real major source of points, because
you need to take advantage of that. Firstly, because you need to defend the room and get the frags. You probably lose it because they're committing so much. You will probably lose out, but you'll probably win the amount of frags turnover. But also, you need to know that your team is taking great advantage of the red and rail situation on the other side of the map. So, while they might come out with winning the yellow room, woohoo, they might only have like 1 LG out of that, maybe 1 yellow, and then a few of their players are damaged. On the other side of the map, we've got Vor sitting there, getting every red while they're not even attacking him. He's got a red, another team that's got a red maybe, they've got a couple of rails each. So even though they've won the yellow, suddenly you're the actual stack team. You can just wander in whenever you want and take back that yellow. But usually it's up to quad time anyway.
There are teams that do that. There are teams that do commit so many people to this yellow room, but you need to identify that this team really wants this room. Let's defend it as long as we can, pick up all the kills we're going to get from defending it. When we're pushed out, eventually pushed out, let's not do the same thing. Let's not throw away the frags they just gave us. And as long as you've had someone keeping exact time on the red and rail, then even though you've been pushed out, that guy should be in a good position. Because you can't underestimate how much the opposing team has to throw away if they truly want to force their way into this room. I mean, it can't be said how easy these shots are onto this staircase, either from here or here. I mean, there is no way in without losing substantial amounts of frags against good players. Now, this corner here is an absolute death trap, either from shotguns in this position or rocket launchers. You know, this
Plasma
isn't.
even.
If you imagine you're coming around this corner, this isn't the sort of corner you're going to come round at amazing speeds. I mean, you might want to try and line the jumps up or whatever, but no, you're still going to be landing always in this area here.
Death zone, hotspot area.
Yeah, and shotgunners are just going to have an absolute field day. The same is true if someone's come from the back telly. This position here with a shotgun, rocket launcher. No, this is not an easy part of the map to win back without giving away a lot of frags.
So the lightning gun yellow room, I'd say, is obviously the second most important room or area on the map. Well, in a way, it is the most important because this is the area. If you get a stacked guy, he's going to get 75 armor. He's going to get a lightning gun, which is the gun that gets the kills. Potentially get control of the mega, and he's got a very safe position to back up to. He's got good access to the upper ground and a lot of easy spawns just outside the room that he can take advantage of. He's even got 325 health bubbles in relatively close proximity, 2 especially close, and then 1 just round the back corner as well. Obviously you're dropping off to lose position there, but at the end of the day, you know, if you need the health, it's still in a good position for you to grab. So it's a very strong location to hold, and it's the location that you would put maybe your strongest player who will stack up for the power-up, or who will take advantage of that armor and weaponry to move out constantly, using that armor up, doing damage out at the red area. So that's the sort of balance in play. I mean, it's debatable which is better. You obviously ideally want somebody stacking just before the quad, but you do need to use the armor and the lightning gun the rest of the 2 minutes in between the power-ups or whatever, or 1 minute 30.
Yeah, and let's look at ways you can use the lightning gun in yellow effectively. I mean, you have to be... Alright, if you're planning to push out this way, which is, you know, the standard way of going out, you do have to be somewhat mindful that someone can spawn down in this mega room, come up into here and wait for the items. So do not lose track of when this lightning gun and yellow are spawning, because you don't want to find yourself coming back round here late, casually late and whatever, and then you find yourself confronted by a lightning gun player. Keep track of the items and be back before they spawn.
This is
Key is to be back before they spawn, because it's too late if, like, I'm here, yeah, LG's up now and there's already a guy having, you know, waiting around here, having come up the stairs. It's too late at that point. You've given away the items. Even if you kill him straight away, you've still lost out on what would have been an important item, because every time you come back here, you've probably used a good amount of LG, and you actually need this pickup either for yourself to replenish your ammo or to call a teammate and tell him it's available.
And this is exactly why originally when we played it, say for example as the UK team, we would have one player getting that yellow, getting the LG, moving out, and then one support player who would just stay high in this area just to make sure that everything's locked down. Now obviously they might move out to the back and have a peek over there, shoot at the back yellow, secure that, tele exit as well, important to watch in that back room. They might move out to bridge area themselves, but that person, their job would keep absolute lock on this upper area, lock down this room, effectively securing it, and make sure every 5 seconds they just return to that room. So you might go out, peek, have a shot, then back up. And this person's job was to basically not die and then help the other guy stack up and support. Now maybe that's too much, that's too little of a role actually.
It's kind of a floating role. In some situations in the match you'll possibly want someone doing that, but in other situations a player like that isn't needed.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to what you can do with lightning gun yellow. If you push out this way, first thing to think about as earlier is that's an ambush point. Be fairly cautious. I mean, a lot of the time you'll know if someone's there or not. You know, your teammates who are playing or getting the red armor or whatever, they'll know and tell you, be careful when you push out to bridge or whatever. So that can be a
if it's that slow a
about.
game. I mean, in all honesty, they probably won't even need to say that because they would have shot him and he wouldn't have stood there.
Yeah, it's rare that there's going to be someone there, but it is is a good ambush point. You have to be somewhat mindful of it. So when you head out, obviously there's the tele exit. The thing to think about is when people come out the tele exit, they actually end up often behind this pillar, and you shouldn't, I don't think anyway, it depends on the situation. You don't want to waste your ammo trying to hit them around the pillar
No.
because you've only got 100 ammo. You want to be, round the corner, putting pressure on them. Now, obviously, you have to potentially worry about there being a railer over here. It depends what the match situation is. You'll know, after the first few minutes, has there been a railer here regularly waiting for me to shoot me as I come round? If not, it's not something you have to think about. But, LG to this spawn point here, you'll pick up a lot of kills on someone spawning there if you don't go too far forward as to block the spawn off. And then often you'll find people over at this spawn as well. And the LG does reach that wall, as you can see.
You do have to be cautious moving out. I mean, often you'll be confronted with a railer on the bridge. And in addition to that, often you'll find nobody's there on the bridge, right? As you move out, you just at this 25, you'll look out, nobody's there. So you go, okay, I'll walk forward, I'll have a bit of a look. So you start walking forwards, then there might be just a railer there. Bam, shoots you, backs off. That's annoying. There might not be anybody there, but then the further you move forwards, the more risk you're putting yourself in, because suddenly someone will run out the teleporter, then there'll be someone who'll spawn next to him up there as well, and you'll think, okay, they're fairly close, but then someone will spawn by the plasma, start machine gunning you down on top of that as well, and suddenly you're in a terrible position. So you have to be a little bit cautious in this position.
You have to be so aware
Of the deaths that are going on, the movement around the map.
Don't hesitate to back off to the yellow, because the thing to remember is, if you die and you've been the guy playing yellow game, then the other team is going to look to capitalise on that straight away, because they know, right, that room is maybe got one guy waiting in there, but he might not have much, so let's put pressure on if we can. So, don't overextend. I mean, for whatever you do, do not chase someone or whatever all the way around here. It's most likely, 99% of the time, is not worth it. Wow. Rocket jumping, fail. Anyway.
So, the other key thing, of course, is to remember that you are stacking for... Well, first of all, when you move out, you are supporting the red and the rail. So don't get carried away shooting spawners on bridge if the red's under threat. Remember,
so
you've got a good angle here.
Yeah, this is a key angle onto the red. I mean, it reaches all the way to where you can see. Anyone coming down in a straight line or in a zigzag is easy to shoot coming onto this red, because whatever dodging pattern they might be trying to do in this sort of area here, they're eventually going to end up having to run to this red, so you're going to put severe damage onto them. Same goes with this spawn over here. You can reach it from there. Obviously, if they immediately go for the 50, might not be able to hit them if they're right in that back corner.
But either way, you got to remember, it's not always about getting the frag instantly. It's about forcing them into a position, damaging them. They're going to be running around the map looking for health, and there's not a lot of health on this. There's only 4 25s and 2 50s, and then just the 3 5 health bubbles as well. So there's not a lot of health, and they're not going to get a mega probably. So even just the damage is a bit of a helper.
Yeah, it's one thing. Even though TDM is all about who's got the most kills, in some situations, just severely wounding someone is as good, if not in some cases better, than getting the kill. I mean, let's say you hit the direct rocket on the spawner. Now, it doesn't matter if you kill him or not. If that 50's not up, then the guy's on 25 health. So what's he going to do? Is he going to go looking for the health through that wall, around the corner? Or what is he going to do? He essentially can no longer really help his team in any way. So it doesn't matter if you kill him or not. So if you were to hit the rocket and then all of a sudden find yourself under pressure from a machine gunner there and people through the teleporter, just back off, because you've already done a hell of a good job.
So I mean, that's the primary way you would use the yellow. I think is almost always moving out high, because as soon as you drop and say moved out low, if you dropped off down there, moved out low.
If we look at this, this is a good route out, because depending on the situation, coming out high can often result in you getting hit by a rail from someone, and you can be on the red in seconds. Now, obviously, the thing is, once you've moved out that way, if you don't have a player covering this room for you, now you might take that red, come back, and suddenly see, oh look, there's 2 people up there.
Yeah,
and the
Barry and
LG
John
and the
have
yellow
locked
are
it down.
yeah, and the items are coming up soon, and I'm not going to be able to get on them without potentially dying. So, no, if you're going to push out this way, be extremely careful that one, you know when these items are going to be, and two, if there are people who have moved in high, don't force your way back in by going up this staircase because you've got the stat, you've got some items, you've got lightning gun. It
Much better
doesn't
route
take
is this,
long
yeah.
to get back this way, and this is a hell of a lot better than coming up the staircase.
And just like any other map, ideally, when you want to attack a room and take it, you want a coordinated attack. You want the players with no weapons, weaker players, to move in first, take the initial fire, the ambush shots, and then the stronger players to move in. You want to be attacking from different angles. Ideally, you want people coming in from where Vor is at the moment, the back route. People coming in from that sort of front doorway. Although it leads to the same doorway, it does work as two different angles. Unless they sit right the way back, but even then, there's still a slight variance in the angles. And if you can, you want pressure from that lower doorway up the stairs. You don't need people running up the stairs necessarily, but just shooting up, drawing their fire. So always remember the coordination elements of every map and the way you attack, the timing of it. You might get 3 people, are you ready to attack? Yep, go. The weaker guy goes in first, Vor follows, wins over the room. That's how you'd play it. So
yeah, and obviously the last way you could push out lightning gun is to here, and if quad is coming up, this is generally
the safer route.
Usually the safest route. There can be exceptions. You can come around this corner, find that there's a railer up there, and then someone here as well. And while you're only able to reach this guy with your lightning gun, the guy over there is going to be railing the shit out of you. So even if you kill, oh my god, even if you kill the guy that's here, it might not be worth it. You might just want to try the other route instead.
Also, I mean, when I've played the yellow armor route, although obviously you want to support red, it's actually really effective if your guys are doing a good job at red to come to this back room to mop up a lot of frags. You get spawners down at the yellow, as we know. You get people escaping through that teleporter from the rail position to high that you've got to cover anyway. So you do actually do a pretty good job, and you don't take any real damage here if you're moving out. So it's a good way to retain a stack, especially if you're trying to stack 2 people up. Is that if you're going to move out and do a bit of damage, this is a good solution.
Yeah, all about knowing what the your other teammates are doing. I mean, if your other teammates are so strong at red, then they might not need you to push out towards red and help them, and in which case you can come to this back yellow room, shoot down onto it with your LG. They can't pick up rocket. No, there's a spawner. This guy, I don't know if you block the spawn by standing directly above this, but you've got an opportunity potentially to take the yellow. Even if you have a guy covering this room for you, you can drop down, take that yellow, maybe come back through mega, or maybe even go round to red.
Yep.
Now you've got options. There's plenty of different ways to use lightning gun yellow on this map, and it's impossible nearly for the enemy team to counter all of them. Now, if there is immense pressure on you, and as we covered earlier, if there's a guy railing from there, and you know that there's been people railing you from this bridge all game, then you really need to be cautious attempting to counter them. Obviously your lightning gun can counter the guy raining at you from this position, but you have to charge straight at him and he might hit a rail, so you might only trade about an equal amount of damage. So be careful of be mindful if you're playing this room of the positions you can be hit by railers from that position. You know that taking up a lightning gun might require you to try and draw out the shot with dodging, and then run over to pick it up. And it's the same with this yellow. Now you can see where you need to be careful. It's this point here. Wait for the shot to be fired, and then you can pick it up and jump away. Just be mindful of the positions that people can ambush you from, and don't stand in those positions.
So I think the last area to talk about is quad, but obviously that leads on from this room. Now, pretty much anybody's strategy, if they control this room, is to get the guy stacked there, one player with an LG, with the yellow and the shards at 75 armor. That will be the person most likely, unless somebody manages to get a clean red, which is unlikely. He should be the quad carrier. So he's going to get that last one and then move through. Ideally on this map, I mean, you probably want to start getting people there 20 seconds